All right, everybody, we have Danny Suede on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Can you kind of like tell us about yourself? You're a musician, you're a blogger, you do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I would say I'm a musician first and foremost. I started on the drums, did a little piano when I was younger, but over the years, I've just wanted to start making my own songs. So I learned to produce, learned some guitar, learned my way around Logic and recording and stuff like that. And that's kind of my main goal and my main focus, my favorite thing to do. But yeah, I've also started a blog. Um, and so I've been writing and yeah, just really going for it. But um, yeah, that's kind of a quick potted bio, but we could go into any of that if you want.
Yeah, so what made you want to like start a blog?
Great question. So I actually saw a video by this guy named Dan Coe, and he was talking about this thing he does and just recommending that if you have a goal, especially that has to do with the public, you can basically map out kind of where you are, where you're trying to go, and like the things in between that you would have to achieve to like get where you're going. And then basically write through achieving those things and working on those things. And then in turn, turn those like blog posts, turn those, turn the process of you writing through those things into blog posts and then also tweets, Instagram reels and TikToks and kind of think through stuff in a public way and turn it all into content and just to help with your journey and building all that. And so I was like, dang, that sounds like a super good idea. And I just tried it and I found it to be like so like I never would write. Like I would journal a little bit,
Yeah.
but when I started writing, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I would just be figuring stuff out as I was writing." And I was like, "This is amazing." So I really just stuck, loved it, and I've been sticking with it and recommending it to a ton of people too. But so
Yeah, no, I
that's how
love
it started.
Substack. Um, there is this quote, or I'm gonna be paraphrasing here, but Friedrich Nietzsche, are you familiar with Nietzsche?
Yeah, I know who he is. I'm not super familiar
Yeah.
with his writing or whatnot, but
Well, he once said that he writes to get rid of thought. Like there's all
ah,
these thoughts boiling around in his head, and he writes because he wants to get rid of them, almost exhaust them from his mind. Do you feel that way when you write music as well,
um, that's a great
or do you ever
question.
feel
And
that way?
yeah, I mean, I would say with writing, I don't necessarily feel like I'm getting rid of the thoughts to a certain degree,
Yeah,
physically writing, because sometimes I just almost work myself up more as I'm thinking about more
yeah,
stuff, and then I'm like digging in. I kind of get, can get a little crazy. With writing music though, yes, sometimes and other times not. It kind of depends. Like I write songs for different reasons, sometimes in different states, and it just really can depend. So there's definitely been a lot of times where I'm like writing music to let go of something or to work through something. And I find that a lot of times now, because of the music I want to create publicly, it's almost the opposite where I'm like I'm writing music to create a feeling and an emotion that I want to feel that I'm not feeling. So I'm trying to create this like, this vibe and like create this vibe and inhabit it because that feels good to me and that's what I like. But and that's what I do purposefully when I'm trying to put out music. But it's interesting that you ask because I recently in I think February lost my grandma, and it was like kind of one of the first losses in my life. I'd lost my grandpa previously a few years back, but he was super old and it was pretty natural, and it was hard, but it was
yeah,
natural. And same thing with my grandma. However, and I was pretty close with her, but when she died, I wasn't really overwhelmed with sadness, and I didn't cry at the memorial. I didn't cry, even though I was sad, and I felt a sense of loss. But I had this crazy experience before she died. She was getting sick, and I had a dream that I was with her in her house talking, at the counter, and there was this person in the living room playing a song on the ukulele, and I wake up from my dream and I could remember the song, and which that rarely happens, right? So I was like, that's crazy. So I went over to my piano and just like kind of worked out the chords real quick and like recorded it. just into my phone so I could remember. And I didn't think that much of it. But she passed away not too long after that. And the song was about losing someone and letting go. And I was like, that's so crazy. And then recently, so it's been a few months since then. And recently I've been getting back into the song and trying to like actually put it in the, recording software and make guitar chords and like produce it out and write more
Yep.
lyrics and everything. And I'm just bawling, dude. Like all the emotions are
Yeah.
coming out now when I'm doing this songwriting process. It's so cathartic and like crazy. And I was so surprised because it's like the most pain and like I'm like connecting with that feeling of loss so much more now after all this time through the music and through that experience. And it just didn't happen when she died. And I'm like, and a lot of times music does that. And it does that for me with happy experiences or sad experiences or whatever. So there's really a lot on the menu. I know that's a really long answer, but there's a lot on the menu as far as writing music and what happens and why I do it and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you're almost like wrestling with these thoughts and experiences that you're having in life, and it's not really like you're getting rid of it, but you're like processing it and you're kind of dancing with it in a way.
Yep, that happens, and I a lot of times do feel like I'm getting rid of it. Like that happens sometimes too. It just kind of depends on where I'm at and why I'm writing at the time, and there's just kind of a lot there.
Yeah, I do love the idea of like having a dream and then like taking what you saw in the dream and then using that in real life.
Yeah, that's super crazy. I was gonna kind of while we're on this, the
Yeah,
process of writing and
go
stuff.
for it.
I was gonna ask you. So I started your book today, and
Oh, you
I
did?
was trying to get through it before we had the podcast, but since we moved it up, I
Yeah.
didn't have a chance. But I was really surprised, honestly, and impressed, and I've really enjoyed it so far. I think I'm about a third of the way in,
Oh, wow.
maybe a little less. But yeah, super interesting. And would love to just echo back that question to you of like, why did you write that? And also like, what were your influences when you wrote that?
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting question. So, I spent a long time just writing in my notebooks. I have like three notebooks. I basically just keep writing my different thoughts. And at one point, I was taking my notebooks to the gym, and then I would just write in the notebook, like pen and paper at the gym, between sets. And I probably look like a
Nice.
weirdo, but
Whatever, dude.
but I did it anyways. But yeah, I was just having all these thoughts and epiphanies throughout college, mainly, and especially, I mean, it kind of started in high school. That's kind of my whole accumulation of philosophical thought and ideas and influences written in, I guess, in a short book, right? It's not that long of a book. It's like 120 pages on print. Um, but I guess it is kind of my fictionalization of my own life experiences in a very, obviously very dramatic, uh, fantasy way.
Hmm.
And also my own battle with Christianity and religion, which I've struggled with my whole life. And it was kind of my like coming to terms with it and like forgiving um, Christianity, because I always had really hard feelings for Christianity and religion growing up. And I was like a hardcore atheist. And writing that book was my like forgiveness of it all and kind of my own conceptualization and understanding of what Christianity is and what religion is, and kind of mixing that in with my own kind of more Eastern mindset of things, along with my thoughts of Nietzsche and Camus and existentialism. And that was kind of my own mental struggle, and basically like the past few years of me just struggling with life and feeling trapped in this situation I was in, and I guess wanting to get out of that and feeling that this modern world is so oppressive and like just always feeling trapped in this world and wanting to escape. And I guess that was kind of my journey through that and through my mind and just finding happiness and my own conceptualization of how to fight, or I guess fight fear and also find God in my own terms, like on my own terms, like not just man in the sky, but like the total symbolization of love and meaning and understanding and beauty of the world. I guess I was kind of that's
Wow.
my long-winded answer for that. But
Yeah, that's dope, man. Yeah, I'm so curious to finish it now, knowing that kind of background. So one, I relate a lot because I was
yeah,
raised in the church, and I had a similar thing where it's like I kind of,
yeah,
as I was getting older, I got pretty pissed off, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, what the heck? And like
yeah,
losing, it's really difficult. At least it was for me to lose that. Like it's like everything makes sense, and there's like a picture of everything that you're like, oh,
yeah,
this is what it is. When you lose that, you're like, well, what's the freaking point? And yeah, so I
yeah.
definitely can relate to going through that. And I think that's so cool that you found
Mhm.
a way through that through your book. And I think it's just, man, it's such a cool piece of art, honestly. But going back, like the writing style, like where did
Yeah.
that kind of come from? Like that's what was interesting to me is like, at
Oh, the
least
writing
because it kind
style?
of ebbs and flows. Like I feel like as it was starting, it was like really like I don't know the word like ethereal kind of and like really poetic and just kind of out there to a
Yeah.
certain degree, right? And then it kind of it
Hmm.
and as it's going now, it's grounding itself a little more. Just like it seems like in
Hmm.
reality is kind of how it feels to me so far. But I'm like, where did that writing style come from? Because it's just crazy. The vocabulary's crazy. The way you kind of string everything together is really
Oh,
interesting.
yeah.
And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, is that just kind of what you developed writing over time in your journal, or like what?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it, I'm very influenced by Nietzsche and his
Okay.
writing style. And
Okay.
actually, that first, on the part where it's like, Dear Reader,
Uh-huh.
I actually left a footnote in there for like the print version, where that's heavily inspired by Friedrich Nietzsche's aphorism called The Greatest Weight,
Okay.
where he talked, or not The Greatest Weight, sorry, it's called The Madman, where he talks about the death of God and how we've killed God in our society by basically, um, I guess, materializing everything, making everything science, and um, and I mean that book is basically about it's the whole it's like contra um making the Bible literal. Like I'm against
Mm-hmm.
making the things in the Bible literal and actually taking metaphors out of it makes it more meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, the writing style was heavily influenced by Nietzsche, but also
Okay.
just my own, just going into my own madness in life, I guess.
Nice.
I
Yeah, I
just
mean, dude,
love writing in such a way where I feel mad. I feel like crazy. I don't know.
hell yeah. Dude, it's sick. Are you writing something new? Are you gonna do another book?
I'd like to do a sci-fi.
That'd be sick. Yeah, I would love I think you should, man. That I think that's a I don't think there's very many people. How old are you?
I'm 25.
Yeah, so like for a 25-year-old, like that's wild that you wrote that, in my opinion. Like maybe I'm crazy, but I like to read. I don't read a ton of books, but I was
Yeah.
impressed, and I think you should keep doing that if you love it because that was dope. Um, so okay, two things. One is
Yeah.
I have to confess I've never read
Yeah.
Nietzsche. I
That's fine.
I didn't even go to college. I didn't graduate high school. So like I had to
Good.
kind of educate myself a lot. And so I didn't do a lot of like required reading and like
Yeah.
the kind of classic books you would read. So
Yep.
I would ask you if I was gonna, where should I start with him?
Oh God. Yeah, no, that's a good question. To start with him, I would start with Beyond Good and Evil.
Okay. Bet
Yep.
will do. I'll report
Yep.
back. Okay. So another thing you mentioned that I would love to riff off of is
Yep.
you were talking about the death of God and not taking the Bible literally, and that kind of
Yep.
thing. And I recently started just kind of thinking of this concept and had this crazy experience that I
Yeah.
want to run it by you and get your thoughts on it
Yeah.
because
Of
it's
course.
really crazy. So, um, I was reading Everything Is Fucked by Mark Manson, and
Okay.
it kind of deals with nihilism and kind of
Yep.
where we're at in the modern age. And he has a thing in the end where he's talking about how he says it's I don't think it's his quote, but it's like the same science that killed the old gods will build us new gods or something like
Yep.
that.
Hmm.
And so I was like, okay, I was thinking about that. And like he talks about how now a lot of the gap in society or the hole that's been left by people leaving religion is now being filled by like technocracy and like people almost worshiping our tech
Yep.
overlords like Zuckerberg and Musk and these big companies
Yeah.
and everything. So I was like, okay, that's an interesting idea. And I was thinking about that. Then in parallel, this is so crazy, dude. So I got hit up to do
Yeah.
this TikTok live campaign, right? So TikTok's
Yeah.
doing this thing and they're trying to get people to stream on there, and you have to have like 10,000 followers to do it. I didn't, so I've never been able to go live. But this guy's like, "Yo, we can just get you access if you rip it." And I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a try. Whatever, opportunity comes, I'll see what's up."
Yeah.
So, anyways, he gives me this big best practices thing, and he's telling me all these things to do.
Wow.
And the way TikTok live streaming works, it's the same thing as the TikTok algorithm to a certain degree, where like people are just scrolling through live streams,
Yeah.
and then you get shown to people based on how you're doing and like how much people are engaging and watching you, and it'll show you to more people, and you can get tons of people on your stream even if you have no followers. So anyways, all this to say, so he's telling me all these things to do so you get in the algorithm to get a bunch of people. And the way he's phrasing it, he's like, um, you know, he's like, you want to have a ring light and you want to have your background with nothing really in it, just a kind of a plain background, really
Yeah.
good lighting. The algorithm likes that and it'll boost you. And he's like, if you talk about these type of things and engage in this way, the algorithm likes that, and da da da. Talking about it like it's a freaking thing, right? Like a
Yeah.
conscious thing that's like listening to what you're saying, and it literally listens to the words. Like it's listening
Yeah.
to your words. It's looking how much you're engaging. It's paying attention to everything. And then I was like, holy shit, that's so crazy. And I'm thinking about all these people on Instagram that like do TikToks and Instagrams about like how to get an algorithm and like how to do your captions. And if you put these words here and if you make it this long and you do da 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 and it'll like you. And I'm like, dude, this is literally like parallel to the Old Testament, like Deuteronomy and stuff, where it's like if you put
Yeah.
the blood of the goat on your thing and then if you burn your plants, they're like, do all this stuff and God will show you favor, right? And I'm like, this is what these algorithms are. It's like this black box that no one necessarily fully understands, and it's like everyone's conforming their behavior to it to have a good outcome and not necessarily understanding what they're doing. And then there's these like prophets of people that like, I talked to the guy at TikTok and he said if you do this and that and have this kind of lighting, then you get a good stream and you get likes and da da da. And I'm like, this is crazy. And I'm just trying to like extrapolate out where it's going to go, and it really seems like the next version of that, where we have these like extremely influential, powerful algorithms, programs, and AIs eventually, where like it's everyone's like, it's like back to the Old Testament almost is what it feels like. And I don't know if that's crazy, but I was like, this is getting weird, and it just kind of like clicked for me through that experience. But I'm not sure what you think of that, but yeah.
Yeah, that's really insane. I haven't really thought of it that way in the sense where um I guess like influencers or podcasters, YouTubers, there are kind of um I guess they're like giving these sacraments or they're doing these rituals in such a way to be seen by this new god of AI that wants to, like, we want to be seen by it, we want to be blessed by it with views,
Yeah.
right, with
Yeah,
people
dude.
seeing it, right.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting concept, but I don't necessarily think that this I kind of think this is a false god, right? This is a false god that we've propped up and created. And I don't necessarily think that it's a good thing. I mean, it
I
could end
agree.
up being
Yeah.
a good thing,
No, I don't think it's
but
good at all.
I do think that we are kind of worshiping this thing that doesn't have our best interests at heart, that wants to kind of, it kind of reminds me of, I mean, there's lots of TV shows where, say, there's these people who want to, they do these rituals, like these satanic rituals or whatever, so that they can get like things from Satan or demons or whatever. And I guess it kind of reminds me of that more so, where people are kind of praying to this false thing and they're not exactly going to get what they want in exchange for it, if that makes any sense. Like you might get like fame and money and power, but I mean, will that bring you joy? Will that bring you happiness? Um, and I mean, sure, I want my book to be successful, right? I want this podcast to be successful. I want my YouTube channel to be successful. And I'm sure you want your music to be successful too. But there does come a point to where, hey, do we want to do this? Like, are we doing this for the success to please this algorithm to get a bunch of views? Or are we doing it because we love to make music or we love to write, we love to podcast or have good conversations? right? And that's kind of the thing that I battled in that book, is that, like, hey, I don't want to worship those false gods, and I don't want to be like, I'm not doing this to get like endless pleasure and endless riches. I want to do it because I want to save everything I ever loved, because I want to keep that love with me throughout the
Hmm.
rest of my life.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, man, there's a lot there. I
Yeah,
think,
sorry.
man, no, that's great, dude. I'm about it. I love these kind of conversations. I think it's kind of hard because when I look at like if I'm comparing the kind of new way we're relating to these
Yep,
algorithms and stuff, and I look and I compare it kind of to the Old Testament
yep,
or kind of some old religions, ancient religions, I think like it really just almost depends on like because the way I think of those old religions, like I feel like
yep,
people were new in the world to a certain degree, right? And they don't know what
yep,
the hell to do. They don't know what's going on. So like
yeah,
they're just kind of figuring out these like crude rules
yep,
and ways of living that help you kind of not have a shitty life to a certain degree. Like,
yep,
and they don't
yep,
know though, like they can't see exactly what it is, right? They don't know. They're
mhm,
just kind of doing their offerings and just, you know,
yep,
whatever.
exactly.
But I feel like sometimes it can go wrong. It's because like if you look in the Old Testament, there's all kinds of atrocities that are these people are doing like they do all
Yep,
kinds of sacrifices and like just killing people and raiding people and like there's just all kinds of horrible stuff they do because they think it's the right thing and they're not sure. And then I think on the same side there's a lot of good stuff that comes from it
yep,
and a lot of
exactly.
like deep value that comes from those that way of being. And I almost feel like we're getting into the same thing with the AIs and the algorithm where
Yep,
I wouldn't, whether it's God or not or whatever, I really have no idea. But I just think
yeah,
that it can go both ways, right? Because you could, on one hand, be completely fake, inauthentic, and just trying to please the algorithm and getting completely lost and
exactly.
doing nothing for the right reason. But you could also say, hey, I know that if I can connect with people with a positive message and make people's life better and help make them think and help just, make them not feel alone, the algorithm will, a lot of times if people connect, it perpetuates that as well. So it's like almost how you
Absolutely.
relate to it
Absolutely.
can be good or bad. It's just like this black box of like power
Yeah.
basically that like depending on how you relate to it has a good or bad outcome to a certain degree. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because the algorithm is just a reflection of ourselves, right?
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
that is kind of what God is in many ways. Like we see, because like what a person thinks about God, their conceptualization of God, is more or less a reflection of how they see themselves.
Hmm.
It's that highest ideal,
Hmm.
and if that highest ideal is a good thing, then like you might act in a good way, right? And I think it's exactly what you're saying, in that if you put out good content from the bottom of your heart, the algorithm favors that too.
Hmm. Yeah. And yeah, man, it's weird. I don't know. It's just bizarre. I just feel like I don't know if you feel like this, but I'm pretty plugged in. I try to stay plugged into like the
Yeah.
newest technology and the newest stuff. Like I like the newest, like when the new
Yep.
AI comes out and a new thing, I'm looking,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I just
Oh, I
like
love it.
technology. Right. So I'm finding that like everything is changing so fast. I'm
Yeah.
just like, like can't keep up. And it's overwhelming and just crazy. And I don't even know what to think. It's like the minute I get a second to breathe and like kind of wrap my head around like what is life now? It's like, oh, now life's completely different now. This month there's all these new things
Yeah.
available and new people doing this and blah blah blah. And it's just I don't know if you relate to that where it just seems like crazy. It just seems like
It's
a train's just
overwhelming.
yeah.
Yeah, and then you see like those articles of the robots they're making in China. It's like shit.
I
And then
haven't
you kind
seen
of have
that.
to wonder, because like the CIA, I was reading online, or like I heard it somewhere, that I guess like the CIA is like 20 years ahead of like wherever we are at any given point,
Mhm.
most of the time. So you kind of have to wonder like how many people, like how many public figures like might just be robots,
Yeah.
like you don't
Oh
know,
God.
right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Dude. Yeah, I mean, do you ever feel like you're I sometimes feel like I'm it. Like I'm the only person and everything is
oh, 100%.
a like program or something. And I just kind of I don't know though. It's hard. It's like the thing where a video game where it's like it just renders wherever you're looking and wherever you
Yeah.
are and like everything else isn't really there to a certain degree and how can you know like what do you think like since we were talking about God and all this, like what do you think like life is necessarily? Like what do you think? Do you have like a do you feel just confused or do you think you kind of have a good idea or like what do you think this whole thing is? Like what's going
Well,
on with being alive and like the earth and like everything?
well, if I told you an answer, I'd be either lying or I'd be full of myself, right?
So yeah, you're just agnostic.
Yeah, I'm agnostic. I think
Yeah, same.
that's kind of my view on I feel like that's like the wise way. That's like the scientific way. Not the scientific, but I guess it's the only way you can go about life without, I guess, fooling yourself. And maybe that's naive because you're not willing to surrender to, I guess, like a religion. You're not willing to surrender to a belief or a faith. And I
Mhm.
guess in a way, I mean, that's kind of sad. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel it.
there's like a lack like that mystery, but you can still keep that mystery alive. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think you can like how do you keep the mystery alive while also being agnostic?
Hmm. I have no problem keeping the mystery alive because it just
Yeah.
is freaking alive for me, dude. It's like I
Yeah.
am just dude, once a day, I just look at my hands or I like look it around and I just go, what the hell, dude? Like, what the hell is this? Like, this is crazy. And it just, to me, is a big
Yeah.
mystery no matter what. And I don't, I wish a lot of days that I could have a faith or I could feel like I
Yeah.
know like it's crazy because my so when my grandma passed like my grandparents are really religious, right? Like strong
Yeah.
Christians, just it's like you know how it is, like they're just dead set on that.
Yeah.
And my grandma, like, it was so crazy because she was getting sick and like her quality of life was going down. It was pretty
Mhm.
quick, but she was like so peaceful through it. And like when she was
Yeah.
ready to die, she wasn't even scared. She's like, I'm ready to go see Jesus and like it's all good. And like this isn't fun right now, but it's like no fear, was ready to
Yeah.
go. And my grandpa too, he just handled it like a freaking champ. And he's like, I know she's in heaven. And like I was like, man, I was so jealous. I was
Wow.
like, I would love that to feel that way about life. Like my grandpa, just everything is God's plan, and he just doesn't freaking worry. And he really like, is as much as it could be kind of annoying sometimes because he's super evangelical or whatever. He's always trying to like
Yeah.
ask people about their relationship with Jesus or
Yeah.
whatever, and it can kind of get overbearing. But I go, damn, this dude really believes that shit. Like he believes it because
Yeah.
if he thinks you need to know Jesus or you're gonna go to hell, he's gonna freaking ask you, dude. Like, because it matters. And I feel like I respect that, and I've
Yeah.
always been jealous of that. Where I'm like, man,
Absolutely.
how nice would that feel to have that peace, And and
Yeah.
so for me, yeah, the mystery's alive, and I don't know. I'm just searching, man. I really am so curious. I love to listen to any theory, like any kind of theory
Yeah.
about whether it's
Yeah, me too.
simulation theory, whether it's the classic religion theories or reincarnation or like whatever it could be. I'm just curious. I like to explore. I like to see what makes sense and what corresponds with my own experience. Partially, I think partially like I've done a lot of psychedelic drugs in the past, so I've
Hey,
had
me
some
too.
right. So I've had some experiences where I'm just like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know if you can, have probably like 3 to 5 strong psychedelic experiences on various drugs and like have a strong
Firm
belief
belief.
of the way the world
Yeah.
is. Like, I don't know if that's even possible for a human mind
Yeah.
because it really just makes you question shit. So that's where I'm at. I'm floating, man. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. And I love like being able, like, I love, like, as I'm like at this stage in my life where like I used to be like hardcore atheist, and that was a religion. Like, I found out that that was a religion,
Yeah.
like, until it wasn't until I took like mushrooms for the first time that I realized that I was just like the evangelical Christians. I was following a faith, a religion, but my religion was that there was no God and that the
Mhm.
Big Bang was real. And then at one point I'm like, well, like, wait a minute. I can't go back in time 8 billion years to actually prove like what happened. I can't prove that there isn't a God. So now I'm free to kind of lose myself in whatever rabbit hole or faith or whatever it may be and just kind of dive into it. Like, I can kind of see the value in Jesus Christ. I can see the value in the Buddha or or any of these faiths and these philosophies. And it's amazing to have the ability to kind of dive into those mysteries whenever I want to.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm on the same page, and I relate, man. It's like I was, it's like I feel like it's maybe common where it's like you're religious, you
Yeah.
get a little older, and then you kind of start questioning things, and then you get kind of mad, and you're just like, God's not real, and like, no,
Yeah.
no, God is real, and like, this is the dumbest thing ever, and then you kind of go, wait, maybe I don't know. Um, and I don't know for you, like, because it was partially through psychedelic experiences for me, but
Yeah.
a massive turning point for me was discovering Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
And then like his biblical series, like his biblical
Yeah.
lectures. Have you heard those?
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard some
Yeah.
of them.
That rocked my shit, dude. I ripped all, I don't know what it is, 40 hours of those, or maybe, I don't know, 15 hours or something. But
Yeah.
it completely blew my mind because to that point, I was like, the Bible is just dumb. Like, how do people believe that
Yeah.
this is real? Like, come on. And then, I hear him talk about like Jonah and the whale and like the
Yeah.
metaphorical meaning of like if you have
Yeah.
something you're supposed to do, but you avoid it, it can swallow you, but there's still room for redemption if you decide you want to go do it or whatever, like that whole metaphorical like story and how valuable that is and for people to, you know, as a story
Yeah.
what that means. And I'm like, "Oh." And then I'm like, I knew the Bible really well, so I start kind
Yeah.
of looking back at all these other stories and
Good.
I go, "Damn, those are bangers." Like I was like, the Bible's lit.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I love the Bible and I think the Bible's dope, and I don't necessarily take it that
Yep.
literally, but um, I also, sorry, this is a bit of a swerve, but while we're on the
Yeah. Go
liking the
for it.
Bible again, I don't know if you watch Ancient Aliens ever, but like I used to just
Oh, I've
freaking
seen
get
it.
high and
Yeah.
just send it through those. And I think a lot of those biblical stories, the idea that there's some kind of truth to like
Yep.
actual interference from I
Yep.
wouldn't maybe say aliens, but supernatural beings, or maybe
Yep.
just advanced beings that lived on the earth at some point that were like a separate
Yeah.
culture that like influenced them. I think there's so much like, Elisha getting taken up to heaven in the chariot of fire and that kind of thing. Like that's a rocket, probably, dude. Like I don't know what to tell you, but abduction. I don't know. I think there's a lot of that stuff makes sense to me, and I maybe not all of it has that explanation, but some of it I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was some type of weird interference going on there, and
Yeah.
that a lot of those stories come from that. I don't know if you subscribe to that, but I'm pretty convinced.
Well, it's also like, even if it's not real, like, can't you just let us like think it's real, you know?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's way more fun. It's way more fun.
Well, have you seen Ancient Apocalypses on
Yep.
Netflix?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, baby. Graham Hancock all day, baby.
Dude, I loved that documentary.
So sick.
I like, okay, if that's all a scam, that's okay. I'm a sucker for it. It
Yeah,
was,
same. Dude.
yeah.
Yeah, I like when that dude's on Rogan, I click every time. I've probably seen every interview on there. I love all this stuff about like all that kind of stuff. I actually recently Graham Hancock
Hmm.
did go on Rogan and do a debate.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw part of it.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was a long one. It
Like
was like a
half of it.
4 hour. Yeah, but it kind of I was like, okay, this guy's I don't know. I was like, he did pretty good. That dude Flint, he's
Yeah.
like, okay, he had some good
Yeah.
arguments. And I was like, dang, some of that stuff, I was like, man, that's a solid argument you got there, guy. So I was kind of a little sad because like, okay, maybe it's not all ancient civilization or like,
Yeah.
advanced ancient civilization, whatever. But yeah, did you see the guy on Rogan that was talking about the pyramids and the power plant in the pyramid?
I listened to the first like 20 minutes of that.
Dude,
Yeah.
if you finish that, dude, that blew my mind, bro. I was like, dang, I love it. I love that stuff. It's so sick.
Well, while we're on the topic of Rogan, I had like a really like this morning, like while I was at work, I was listening to this podcast and it was with shoot, what's his name? I can probably find it right now. I think his name's Terrence Howard.
Oh yeah, dude. The
Yeah,
new
he's the
one.
guy from, did you listen to that?
Oh yeah, no, I'm halfway through, but I can't even take it for that long because it's so insane, dude.
Yeah,
Doozy.
so yeah, no, that one was like for one, it's Terrence Howard, the guy from Iron Man, which you're just not expecting to whatsoever even think like that or talk like that or make all these shapes by hand at his
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
But it has to, I'm sorry, I was listening to this podcast the other day and they were talking about attention. and how attention and genius kind of have a like symbiotic relationship where a genius uses their attention, and that's kind of how they're a genius. Like they're so hyper focused on one thing that
Mhm.
they can just like basically spend their whole life working on that one thing. And
Interesting.
that's why they're
Okay.
so good at it. That's why they develop all these thoughts. And that's kind of what the flow state is, in a sense. And do you ever experience the flow state when you're doing music?
Oh yeah, dude. 100%. That's like, dude, that's for me. That's like the holy grail, man. When I get in the
Yep.
zone and I'm
Yep.
ripping it, I live for that. Yeah, 100%.
And what do you think that is? Like, do you think you are kind of pulling, like, what is creativity? Do you think you are pulling something from God, or do you think you're pulling, like, do you think that's a frequency? Is that coming from you? Like, what do you think the flow state is?
Okay, so I think scientifically there's probably pretty good
Yeah.
explanations for what's like actually going on in your
Yeah.
mind and like certain parts are turning off and on and allowing you to do
Yeah.
certain things. I'm not that sure about the, science on it. As far as
Yeah.
what it feels like, I go full wooey
Yes.
because the thing is like I wouldn't say it feels like pulling from God. I feel like it's getting a download. It's like I'm getting given something, right? It's like
Yeah.
that idea of the muse. I don't know if you've read The War of Art. Have you ever read that? Big recommend, bro. It's
Okay.
amazing. And it talks about it's really short, but I think it's Stephen
Yeah.
Pressfield, but it's really short, but
Yeah.
he talks about this idea of the muse. And I think it goes back to like ancient Greece or whatever. And the muses were like fairies or like goddesses or whatever that would like
Yeah.
give inspiration to people, right? And that's the kind of idea. And I feel like that big time. And because one thing I do is music, but the other I have this whole other side that I do, which I'm probably more talented at, which is visual arts,
Okay.
right? I do all my visuals and 3D renders and music videos and all this. And I
So is
recently
that all your
just
like the cloud
yeah,
stuff
yep.
and like all that?
So
That's all you?
I do everything myself, yeah. And
Wow.
the thing is, I have this music video. So I have this other band with my brothers called the Young Sires, and
Yeah.
man, I just finished this music video. It was probably a 5 or 6 month process of making this.
Wow.
And bro, I'm telling you, like, there's a lot I could say about it because it's the best thing I've ever made. It's the longest I've ever focused and spent on something. It's definitely my best work. And dude, the idea came to me like a freaking lightning bolt in my sleep, bro. I'm in my bed, not asleep, but laying in my bed, and just like, bro, just bam, like it was like violent, dude. And it
Wow.
just like literally downloaded into my head. I could see all what I wanted to make. And I just spent the next like 5 or 6 months making it real. And like we shot in my garage on a green screen. I'm spending hours and hours every day. Wake up first thing in the morning, rendering, shooting, doing scenes, and it's this
Wow.
intricate music video. It's freaking sick, bro. I'll send it to you after this. It comes out. It comes out in like 5 days. It comes out on the
Hey,
25th.
shoot. Hey, shoot.
Yeah,
'Cause I was gonna say we should play it right now on the pod. That'd be cool. But
dude. Here I'll send you. I'm totally down. I'll send you a link. If you wanna, or maybe I could do a screen share, but I'll send you a link and maybe you could play it on your side. But
oh
yeah.
wait, you have it
Anyways,
up?
yeah. I could send you a
Oh,
I could send you a link. Um,
yeah. I mean, if you want, we can play it on the pod.
Let's do it, bro. I'm
It's
super down.
totally up
It's
to you.
crazy. Yeah, let's do it.
Sweet.
I'll pull it up right here, but gotta go onto this YouTube
Yeah,
account.
we can cut out any blank space, by the way. So
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
don't worry about that.
I'll give you a little more context because it's a
Yeah.
really good question for the context, but okay, so hold on. I think I can maybe just share my screen and we'll just rip it on here.
Well, how about you? Well, if you have the link, it'd probably be better if you share it with me.
Send it.
But
Okay, cool. I got you here. It's unlisted. So here's the thing though, you gotta make sure you put it on 1080 or you gotta put it on the high quality.
okay, yeah, I can do that.
If it can handle it. But okay, so let me give you a little context. I just threw it in the chat for you. Okay, so this music video, so we're talking about the muse, right? And like so this idea freaking hits me, bam. And I have all these sick ideas. And the music video, the theme of it, it's really crazy. Like it's out there, but the theme of it is there's all these objects in it that
Yeah.
represent our ideas that are like the muses that and it represents our
Oh, interesting.
struggle. It represents like our relationship to our ideas because sometimes they're angelic and nice and easy, and sometimes you have to wrestle them and they're violent and hard to like wrestle and figure out and like bring them into reality, and they're fickle. And sometimes they're nice and easy, and it's just this crazy relationship of art that we kind of all experience, and the music video like just depicts that in a cool way. And so yeah, in the beginning of the music video, you'll see there's like this kind of big ass like bird looking spaceship thing, and it like get and the logo comes down, and it like comes to me, and that's like represents the idea of the music video itself coming to me. And then there's this all these objects and this crazy shit the whole time. And that's what it's about. It's like the flow state, the muse. It's being connected to that source, right? It's like the source and the sorry, so much, but the song is called Interstella. Interstella is like our idea of this God or like the universe, that like where all the ideas and the objects come from. It's like the master of the universe kind of
Yeah.
that gives the ideas and everything to us, and that's what Interstella is. And the song is singing to Interstella, asking for inspiration and like asking for it to go better to a certain degree. So that's the idea. So we could rip it.
See that shit far light, life in the sky where I'm not. Three distant far lights, that's where I wanna die, die, die. Yeah, running on clouds without a doubt, and I spark that shit ball of fire. Yeah, can't expire, yeah, hellfire. Right now, and the body drop, 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 drop. Knowing the space that you in will fade in the eye. Start a shit.
Wow,
Yeah,
dude,
it's crazy, dude. What is
that
that?
is that is incredible. Holy
Thank
crap.
you.
How did you
Dude, it got
what
lasered into my brain. I'm telling you, bro.
dude, yeah, no, there's no way that you can make something like that without just getting that hyper focus.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had to freaking send it. And I think there's two things that happened. One is I made another music video for us like a couple years back where it was like kind of a mini version of that. a way
Yep.
different style, but same thing. I just freaking sent it on this video. And I got so burnt. So it's just been a while since I've been willing to do another one. But I had this idea and I was like, I have to make it. It just felt like, it just literally felt
Yeah.
like God was like, you're going to make this video and here's the idea and you have to make it. And I was like, okay, fine. But that happened. And then the other thing that happened was I watched the movie The Creator. Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that
Yep. Great
rocked my
movie.
shit, inspired me so much, and mainly because I watched all the behind the scenes and the interviews of Gareth Edwards, the director, and
Wow.
one of the DPs, Oren, talking about how they made it, and they really just like broke all these rules and just came up with a whole new way to do VFX and approach a movie.
Wow.
In all these interesting new ways, and just really like kind of broke the mold and just said, fuck it, we're going to do some new shit. There's new technology, new ways of
Wow.
doing things. And they talked about how they kind of thought about the movie and like doing it. And it was just so inspiring to me. And I just had this epiphany like, man, I get so caught up being like, oh, I don't have like the right tools, or I don't have a team, or I'm by myself and I don't have enough money, and all these things, these excuses. But at the end of the day, I'm like, dude, I just realized that if you just, it's just how you think about it. Like, and I
Yep.
was like, oh my God, and my brain just really unlocked. And
100%.
I thought of all these ways that I could make these shots in our garage. Like I made the whole thing right here,
Yep.
and we shot in our garage on a green screen, literally the entire video. And I just was really tried to be ingenious and just tried to like, how can I make, I have this shot in my head. I could see this. How can I
Yep.
make this on with the computer that I have in the garage with a green screen? And just tried a bunch of techniques. I think the way I produced it isn't traditional. Like if a normal VFX artist or like music video producer like saw what I did, they'd be like, "What are you doing? Like this is not what you're supposed to do." But I just freestyled the whole shit and ripped it. And yeah, and I'm super happy with it. It was really crazy, honestly. But anyway,
Yeah.
so all
Yeah.
the way back around, yeah, to the Muse. That's for
Yep.
me. That's what it's like. It feels like a freaking lightning bolt of an idea most of the time when I get ideas. Just that's the experience for me.
Yep. And how did you like, also, have you seen Dune?
Yeah, dude, I love it, dude. Dude, that video is so
Okay.
inspired by Dune, bro. Like straight up.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was
Yeah.
like, because like your outfit in that, well, at least I thought that was you. You looked like the guy, I forget what his name, Paul
Yeah.
Atreides.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Yep.
were super inspired by Dune. And honestly, the first Dune, like I was already well into this video before the new Dune came out, but we
Yep.
loved the first Dune. My older brother, Ben, he makes the music, right? So he does most of the production and the music and writing. He does all the production, most of the writing, and then he does the outfits. So he's kind of the one that's into fashion and everything. And the crazy thing is that whole video cost us probably, when it was all said and done, about 4 bands. And
Wow.
1,200 of that was the shoes. Like we just balled out on these shoes. They're like $400 each, because he's like, dude, these are these moopies with the bubbles. Like they're freaking so gas. We got to get them. So we just balled out on all the clothes. Like that whole budget was basically clothes, because he really wanted to kind of have a cool look for that. So yeah, we just went crazy. But yeah, super inspired by Dune for sure. And the creator. If you can't tell by the text on the screen and
Yeah.
stuff, like that was that.
Yeah, no, and that song, I guess what are the lyrics about? It goes fast, so it's kind of hard
Yeah.
to
So
like take it all in at the first
yeah,
time.
a lot of people complain because they don't know what we're saying in our songs, which is justified. And here's the weird thing. This goes perfectly to the thing, like the point of the music video, where some ideas come so easily and it's like a
Yep.
slip and slide. You just whoop and it's easy. Some, though, it's almost like you got to wrestle with it. It's like God giving you a tribulation, right? And you got to like figure it out, and it's really hard, and like, and you don't know what to do. And you're like, you gave me this idea. Like, why isn't it working? Like, why can't I make it happen? And like, it can be really frustrating and hard. And with this, so the initial song, Interstellar, right?
Yep.
We wrote 2-3 years ago, right? And then
Oh wow.
couldn't finish it, and we just couldn't get there. And then we had these writing sessions with this guy named Young, they were K-pop writing sessions, and he invited us to come work on some K-pop music with him, and he's incredibly talented producer, right? And so he sat down, we showed him the song, and he's like, "Oh, you should do this for the pre-chorus," and gave us some new chords and helped us, and then we finished it. And the song is about, it's literally about the Muse. It's us singing to the Muse. Saying, it says like some of the lyrics say like, "What have I missed?" And like it's like questioning it and say, and like, you know, in my verses where I'm like, I'd say three distant far lights, you know, like that's where I want to die. And it's like envisioning where I want to go and like, why can't I get there? Why is it hard sometimes? And it's like kind of like us singing to Interstella about the ideas that we're given and how to navigate it and how to deal with them. And it's kind of cryptic. It's like some of the lyrics,
Yeah.
a lot of times we're like, this just sounds cool. Like, I don't know exactly what it means.
Yep.
It just sounds cool. Send it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The perfect example is like, so we get halfway into the music video, right? And we've been filming for 2 months, 3 months, spend all this money on set. A lot of times my brother has to wait while me and my younger brother are like changing the lights or like figuring out a shot or doing a test.
Yeah.
So he's on his laptop, like producing a remix of the song for later. And he produces this remix, which is what's on the video now. And so I was like, dude, this is way sicker than the original song. So I was just like, let's swerve it. So what I did is all the performance clips of us are sped up by like 15%, or not 15%, I think 12%, 12.5%, right? So I just did the math on the tempo change. So, and then I would put in a clip, change it to 112.5% of the speed. And then, so the whole all the performance is actually sped up, which I think looks cool and unique, and weird. Just like it's a little bit different, but yeah, so that's what it's about. And I feel like us switching songs in the middle of it is a perfect example of that, because it's like a lot of times you take on the challenge or you get the idea and you're wrestling with it and just going for it. And then like the plan changes or like something swerves or switches up and you got to kind of mold around and figure it out. And that's how it goes sometimes. So I think it's fitting that, you know, that's how it went. But yeah, it's really about that. It's like you said, it's about flow state, the muse creating how we conceptualize it in that way. And it was just kind of a creative way to conceptualize art and creation.
Yeah, and I heard this quote or like advice or I don't know, talking piece. They were saying something like constraints breed creativity.
Yes.
So when you have these constraints, and I mean I've experienced it, like they were for instance, I got a dent in my car, right? This guy backed into it. I got the license plate, but I was just too nice to not call the
Oh,
police.
nice.
But I took it into the shop, and then the guy's like, "Yeah, it'll cost about $2,000." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, screw that. Like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna find a way to fix this myself somehow." So I just got like some anti-scratch stuff, and like, the scratches came off, and now I just got to take off the dent and stuff. But I wanted to ask you, as far as your experience with this, do you think, like, let's say you're given $1 million to make this video, do you think the video would have been worse or
That's
like
a
not
hard
as good?
that's a really hard question. I don't know, because man, it's like with everything, it's such a double
Yeah.
edge and there's like so many
Yeah,
elements to it,
exactly.
because I do completely agree with the notion that constraints help and breed creativity and
Mhm.
ingenuity, and it's like really helpful sometimes to have constraints. And I I do that all the time, especially with music, where I'm like, I'm just going to use these instruments. I'm
Yeah.
not going crazy, whatever. But I think sometimes too, there's something that happens where if you have all these constraints on you all the time, then all of a sudden they're let off and you can just go crazy. Like a lot
Yeah.
of times I feel like it also breeds an immense amount of creativity, because you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, it's limitless. I could do this, I could do that, and you just go
Yeah.
crazy. And so if you're habituated to that,
Sandbox.
I could see that it's a problem. But I think with back to the creator, listening to Gareth talk about it, he
Yeah.
was talking about how generally in filmmaking, right, you have to storyboard the whole thing, and like the CG shots have to be pre-approved, right? It's like you got to say, this is going to be a CG shot. This is how much it's going to cost. This is what it's going to take.
Sorry, what's a
But
CG shot, by the way?
it's just anything with computer graphics. So it's like if you're having to do
Oh,
effects,
okay, like CGI.
CGI.
Okay,
Exactly. Yep. Sorry.
I got
So yeah. So anything that had like graphics in it, basically, that wasn't just like film. You got to get it approved, et cetera. And that's how it usually is in Hollywood. But he said with the creator, what they did is they shot the whole thing. I'm sure they had tons of ideas of what they wanted to do, but he's like, they went through after and be like, oh, make that person a robot, make that person a robot. Let's have that person be a
Oh,
robot. And they
wow.
got to kind of choose after, because of the approach they took to VFX and the way they decided to film it and do it. And way they were able to save budget on certain aspects because of just the creative choices they made. So in a lot of ways, they had more freedom there. So it's like, but then he talks about some of his favorite shots, and they're these simple shots of like when they were filming a real person doing something mundane, but then they turned it into a robot after, and he's like, it was so special and interesting, and it was something no one usually sees because you would never get those shots approved in Hollywood. They'd be like, dude, we're not doing a whole CG shot of a robot like sifting through rice because that's so expensive. But he's like, since we got to pick it afterwards and did it this approach, you got to have all this novelty and extra stuff. So a lot of times can like, for example, for this music video, the last music video I did was on a laptop that wasn't that powerful, and it was really a struggle. And then when I moved here to LA, I just balled out and got the freaking top Mac Studio, like decked it out. I didn't get full RAM, but I got the literally top processor, just ripped it. And so, dude, my computer, I was like, let's freaking go. I'm doing this. And I was just ripping renders that would take 4 days, you know, in like 10 hours. And I was being able to do all this extra stuff and test stuff way quicker and had all this freedom taken off of me, or freedom given to me, all these constraints taken off of me, that I really think allowed the music video to flourish and me to flourish creatively this whole year, because I just had this freaking sender of a computer that had way more power than I was used to, and I could do way more. So it's a double edge. So it's hard. I think you just got to be self-aware and know, you know, when you want to artificially put constraints on you or not. And also just be positive. If you have constraints, tell yourself, I'm going to be more creative because of this. And that's good. So,
but they're also like, with your new technology, there comes still new constraints, right? Like you might have $1 million budget, but you might have like a different set of people you have to deal with, or like you have less time because like let's say you became like more successful and you were going to like more you're doing more shows or whatever, or you had to make more videos, et cetera, you'd have less time. So then that'd be another constraint on your shoulders, right?
Yep, that's a great point. More money, more problems, 100%. And honestly, now that you mention it and I'm thinking of the process, like I did get to a point a lot of times where I'm like, I can make anything. So I'm like, what do I even freaking, I'm like, I have all these shot lists, and I'm like, bro, I could just keep making these shots forever. Like I got to cut it off at some point. And so yeah, that definitely did cause an additional challenge, because I had to just, you know, I had to kind of pick and choose what I wanted to do, because I had way more or way less limits, you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, that's the worst part, is having so many choices, and like knowing, like you have to know when to stop, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I think too with the flow state thing, this is kind of another concept. Not to get too into the weeds, but it kind of goes with the flow state Muse thing, which I've been playing with recently, which is like, it honestly goes back to the beginning of the conversation when you're talking about like how to know how to be in the world, how to act, right? And over the past year, and like especially through my creative journey, I've kind of learned that I'm so like, I overthink everything. I'm like so cerebral, so like I just want math and want everything to make sense and like understand reason, like logically what to do, right? And I found that if I don't think, like, it's maybe wooey, but I don't think navigating your path or like your destiny, like I don't think you can necessarily do it with reason and logic. Like I found that it's just this really subtle feeling where it's almost like I used to do a lot of photography, a lot of landscape photography, right? And I could eyeball a horizon being straight, like because I straightened so many horizons in editing, right? If like I put a picture on the wall, I could freaking eyeball if that shit was straight within like a 0.5 of a freaking degree, dude. Like I just got dialed and I could tell these little differences. That might be an exaggeration, but you know what I'm saying. And I think with your path, right? When you're thinking how to act, what should I do? What should I do? It's almost like that, where it's like there's these paths laid out in front of you, and it's like the way to go, it's like so subtly illuminated, and it's like you have to just listen, and just really listen and pay attention to your feeling. And it's like you're not going to ever do math to figure out which way to go. You're never going to figure it out, at least for me. And it's just, you got to kind of just kind of is there, like, it's like really subtle. And the more I found that I think of it that way and just really listen to what I should do, I find out what I should do that way. And so, like, as we're talking about the music video and what do I make, and I can make all this stuff, I find my way through creative endeavors that way a lot, where I just really try to just listen to these little teeny feelings and little intuitions and just be so tuned in. And I find that I get guided in the correct path, what feels like the correct path that way more often. And so I'm trying to kind of like swerve that way. But
Yeah, and I love the idea of like listening to the world or like listening to your heart. I don't know if you've ever read the Alchemist.
yeah, baby, 100%. Love it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sweet. Yeah. Yeah, and that's like a concept in there that I mean that book like changed my life. I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
same, same,
That and Siddhartha and so many other
same.
books,
Yes.
uh but The Alchemist, like that book was a life changer for me. And it's like it's so such simple concepts, but I read through it and I just love the idea. It's so intuitive, but at the same time you like need someone else to say it. And that
Mhm.
like listening to your heart, it's so cliche, but that's really the truth of life is just listening to your heart and not like don't listen to like the reason. I mean, sure, be logical, be reasonable, be practical, but at the end of the day, like you have to follow the path of love. You have to follow your heart.
hmm I totally agree, man. I love it. I love Siddhartha too. I got that recommended to me,
Oh
and that's
yeah,
a banger, man. Yeah, The Alchemist was like my intro back into reading. After I
yep,
dropped out of school, I stopped reading, read The Alchemist, and then I just was on a tear after that. So I love those books, and I totally agree with you. I think the place for logic and reason, it's almost like if you have these paths laid out in front of you, you can't figure out which way to go. You use your heart and your feeling and your intuition to like pick a path. And then as you get down that path, you got to figure out like, oh, how do I make a fire here? How do I get across this bridge? Or
yep,
once you know where to go, that's when you employ logic and reason.
yep,
There's tons of times
yep,
for it. I love it. I'm a huge proponent of logic and reason, but I think we with my brothers and stuff, we talk about this metaphor a lot in the past, and it's like in the song too, it's the three distant far lights. It's like
yep,
Orion's belt, or like the idea of the North Star, or like I think of the Magi in like the story of Jesus, the wise men following the star, right? And it's like this thing where that connection to source, right? It's like it's almost like a North Star where it's like you sometimes you can freaking see it like clear as day. You're like, right there it is, I'm going. But sometimes it's just it doesn't come out, right? Or it's cloudy,
yep,
or like you can't see it and you feel like it's gone and you don't know where to go and you're completely turned around. And I find myself in those times of like points in life all the time. And I just remember that. I'm just like, dude, that star, it's freaking there somewhere, dude. And I'm gonna see it again. And I know when I see it, I think, oh,
yep.
there it is. I know that feeling. I'm back. Okay. And I just have to hang on in those times when it's not there. And yeah, it's subtle, man. It's like that. It's really like a muscle you
Yeah.
gotta, listening to that stuff. So it's a hard one.
Yeah, no, no, I like the idea of it being like a muscle. You have to pay attention to it. And that's something also, there's lots of things in life like that. Like, for instance, when you're navigating life in a relationship, when you're, um, I guess like being in a relationship is a struggle in and of itself, but you have to like be able to listen to your own mind and your own mood and like know, like, say, you have to know when you're grumpy or when you're going to be in a bad mood because you didn't get enough sleep or you're not going to get enough sleep tonight. And if you recognize that during the day, you won't take that out on other people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
I totally agree, man. It's like that thing, know thyself. It's like I
Yeah.
feel like that wisdom is just echoes throughout like history because it's so important, man. Like it's hard too, man. It's like I'm surprised sometimes how much I don't pay attention to myself and how much other people don't know why they're doing what they're doing, or like don't
Yeah.
care to introspect. Like it's hard, so easy to look out at everything and not look in, and pay attention. But
So I wanted to ask you, so you're all about like visual storytelling, and I think part of that you can see that with like the clouds and a lot, like I see a lot of cloud
Mhm.
imagery in your I guess in your album covers and on your
Yeah.
blog. And I also wanted to know, what does the butterfly represent?
Okay, so yeah, with the clouds, real quick,
Yeah.
it's like that thing we're talking about listening. Like I really started to pay attention to the little things that like pique my interest and make me feel how I want to feel. And like my whole brand and like the music and everything is like this idea of like inspiration and positivity and happiness and that
Yeah.
joyous feeling and like peace. And I'm like, what feels like that? And I try to pay attention when I feel that. And I feel it all the time. And I'm looking at a blue sky with those big fluffy clouds, man. You looking at those clouds, I look into them sometimes where there's so much depth and it's like this giant thing. And it's just like the way I feel, I'm like, that's that feeling. Like that's the feeling I want to make in my music and that I want to like grab onto and synthesize and share with people. So I just make it a part of my brand because that is a clear way I feel that feeling that I'm trying to find. Um, with the butterfly, um, so okay, I'll go. It can be a long story. I'll do it. I'll try
Okay,
to
you
do
can
it
go
quick.
as far back as
Okay.
you'd like,
Okay.
but maybe
So
not from the birth.
yeah, it's not from the birth, but definitely since from childhood,
Yep.
I'm an overthinker, man. Like
Yeah.
I just
Me too.
obsess and
Me too.
spin on shit, man. It's just yeah. And so when I was younger, I would find things like, for example, you also notice the theme of blue probably
Yeah.
because I hung on to that freaking. I'm like, okay, for example, I'm gonna go get some water. So I go to the cupboard to get a cup, and there's all these freaking cups. What cup do I get? What cup do I want? I don't freaking know, dude. So blue one, dude. I like blue. Get the freaking blue one. Need a new shirt at the store. All these shirts. Which one do I pick? Blue one. Boom. So it's like I would find things like that to help me just freaking not get stuck, right? So I would do that with a lot of things. Um, and so when it came to like texting, I found myself in this thing where I'm like, what emojis do I use? What do I say at the end? Like, how do I want to come across, right? And so I just started putting the blue butterfly emoji because I liked the way it looked, and it just gave me a freaking period. Like I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do this every time, and it's just me, and I just don't have to think about it. So I started just putting it on everything. I put it on my captions and I put it on my text, and it made me feel like comforted to a certain degree, right? And
Yeah.
I liked butterfly. I mainly liked it because it was blue, but I also like butterflies because of the metamorphosis aspect. Again, back to inspiration. Like I love that
Yeah.
idea of like metamorphosis and whatnot. So I just started freaking butterfly everything, dude. Like I just like
Yeah.
butterfly art, butterfly shirts, butterfly everything. And then eventually came I was on Warp Tour and I just felt the need to get a tattoo on my face, which is a whole other story. But here's where it comes into play. What do I get tattooed on my face? Oh, I already know. It's not a question. I don't got to worry about
Yeah.
it. Don't got to think about it. Boom. And so yeah, did it, and then yeah, just made it into my brand. I just would start putting it on everything. I made a clothing brand, which I was ripping it a few years ago. I've put it to bed for now, which it'll be coming back, but just butterflies on all my clothes, butterfly everything all the time.
Yeah.
Crazy. And I'm kind of starting to do that now more with clouds. It's just kind of my current obsession and my current thing that like that I grab onto, but that's kind of the core of it, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if that's weird, but
Yeah.
it's definitely weird.
Well, in a sense, I almost kind of think like the cloud is kind of that natural metamorphosis of the butterfly. Like the butterfly becomes the sky in a sense.
Hmm. Yeah. It's what's crazy, dude, is that they can't heal. It's really sad. Like once it's a
Really.
butterfly, if it gets damaged, it's fucked. Like it can't heal. It can't fix
Wow.
itself. Like that's why they're like if you touch its wings or it gets fucked up or like whatever, like it's just that's it. Once it's a butterfly, it's its last thing. So
Damn, all those butterflies that I accidentally injured. I do not feel good right
yeah,
now.
yeah, that was terminal for those guys, but yeah, it is. It is what it is. But yeah, I do. It is kind of a natural evolution, I would say. And I still love butterflies, but man, the clouds, like, I see a good blue sky with the fluffy clouds, and that just
Yeah.
does it just does so much for me. I'm just like, I love it.
Sweet. Well, before we go, I wanted to kind of mention this one Nietzsche concept, and we were kind of talking about metamorphosis, and it kind of relates to that.
Mm-hmm. Shoot.
He talks about this idea, or I guess he writes this short story, or however you like, a parable, if you will. And it's about the camel, lion, and child. It's these three stages of spiritual metamorphosis, and this is from his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which I would say for last if you're reading Nietzsche at all.
Okay.
It's kind of the most ethereal of his works. And he talks about how at first we're a camel and we're kind of slaves to these concepts that we get kind of fed through school and religion. And then we're the lion and we rebel against those things and we kind of destroy things and we want to break away from those things. And at last we're the child. And the child isn't angry anymore. They're free to be anything and kind of be in the mystery of the world. And I guess with your life, with your creative process, and with this symbol of the butterfly, like what was your metamorphosis going through life and becoming an artist and everything?
Yeah, I love that thing about the camel and the lion. That's super interesting, and I think it's really makes a lot of sense. Like it really seems like how it is, and I think I'm in that. I think I'm going from lion to child. Maybe I would like to think I'm mostly child at this point, but like I said, dude, I was raised religious and
Yep.
really I remember being about 14 or 15 and just I was like, okay, I was laying on the couch and I was like, damn, if this whole thing is real, like it's gotta be that most people are going to hell. Like there's not like there's so
Yeah,
many,
yeah,
right? So I'm like, this is fucked. So I was like, I gotta like basically from this point on, my whole life has to be being a missionary basically because like otherwise I'm a monster. Like if I'm just gonna let like just live my life and all these people are gonna go burn it for eternity, like that's fucking crazy. Like that's what I believe. So I was like, damn, okay, bet, I guess that's what I'm doing. Fuck. So but then I was like, okay, I don't really want to freaking do that. And then I was like, wait, why do I have to do that? I was like, you have if God's like the most powerful God and like he can do anything and he made this, like why is it up to me to have to go freaking fix this shit? Like fuck that, like that's crazy. And I just
yep,
started questioning it from that point, right? And then that obviously just snowballed into what you were talking about, where I just became a angry atheist and I was like, this shit makes no sense, fuck all this, I hate it. And this is dumb and like blah blah blah. I'm fighting with my parents and just like being an ass. And that lasted for a while. And then, like I said, I discovered Jordan Peterson. I discovered the biblical lectures. I basically regained respect for the Bible and religion in general. And in a lot of ways became like that child where at this time I'm just freaking curious and have no idea, bro. I'm just exploring ideas and I don't know what. And it was just, that was the natural evolution. And I've been in that phase for a while now. Like once I really started reading and like listening to a bunch of podcasts and once I noticed I did that circle on the Bible, I was like, okay, Bible's true. Bible's the worst thing in the world. And then I'm like, Bible's like kind of true again, like in it, depending on how you think about it. And then,
yeah.
once I noticed that circle, I was like, okay, bro, I don't know anything, and I'm not gonna really be sure of anything at this point. And I'm in that phase now where I'm just like, you know, that's what it looked like. I don't know if that answers your question, but that was
Yeah,
kind of
no, I had another question on that. Is like, how has your concept of what the truth is changed in that course?
man, dude. That's a question because I thinking about it now that you asked that, I almost think I kind of avoid the question of like, what is truth? Like, what does truth
Yeah.
mean? Because,
Mhm.
if you think about it like a simulation, right? Where if like maybe not like in a sense like like a genuine computer simulation, but like this is like this isn't real life exactly. Like it is in here, but it's like once you die, you might look at this and be like, oh yeah, this was just like a dream. So is it real? So is like something that's the truth in here true? Like, like I don't know, like I don't know how to think about that. And it's like as a practical sense, I feel like it's a lot easier as a practical sense, like, you know, is this a microphone or like whatever. Like you can like in a practical sense, I can
Yep.
think of truth in that way. But like, yeah, once you start getting out there, I literally don't know, bro. I don't what do you think? Like, how do you think of it? Help me out.
Oh, well, I guess like it's not that there's a the truth like with a capital T that I'll ever discover. All I really have is my truth and like what I think,
Hmm.
not necessarily what is true about the world, but like I have my own perception, my own experiences, and that's all I really have in this reality
Hmm.
to base my truth upon. And like I can't prove if there's ancient aliens or if there's an ancient civilization back, you know, 10,000 years ago, but what I do know is that I have these feelings of like love and depression and beauty and all these other feelings, and those are true because I feel them and I experience them.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of goes back to our discussion on logic and reasoning versus feeling. Is that sure, you can use logic and reasoning to solve problems in the world, like, how am I gonna fill this cup of water? Right? I just go to the sink and fill it. But you can't use logic and reasoning to tell you how to live your life, right? Or how to manage a relationship or how to love someone. And I think that's kind of part of what that death of God is, that Nietzsche is writing about, in that we started worshiping logic and reasoning instead of like coming back to our hearts and stuff.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, good. I like that. I like what you were saying about your own truth of your perception, because that's like the only thing you can know.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a good, I like thinking about it that way. And I think that's a good way to think about it. And I honestly think probably that would be good for a lot of people to think about it that way. So nice one. I like that.
All right, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. That was an awesome episode. Um, and it was cool. Like I was not expecting Beatrice to hit, or I probably shouldn't say their
Yeah.
name. I'll cut that
No,
part
you're
out,
good.
but
You're good. Whatever.
but
It's all good.
I was like, okay, like who's this person? Is this gonna be like a spam mail? And
Ah,
it's like okay, Danny Suede. All right. And then I looked you up. I like your music. I'm like, cool. But
dude. Yeah, I would say I want to say thanks too. I love this conversation. Like this is the kind of shit I love, and that's
yeah,
why I went on Fiverr and I hired her. She's like I've just
yeah.
typed in podcast booker, and I hired her to go find me podcasts to be on because I love doing this. And I think getting into your book, the other thing I want to say is I really genuinely enjoyed what I've read of your book so far, and it's not that often that I find myself like not wanting to put the book down. Like even books I feel like I'm getting value from, I still get like, I'm like, okay, I'm freaking tapped. But I think it was just really interesting and intriguing to me, and I think it's great, and I want to encourage you to keep writing and do another book and like rip it because I think it's freaking cool, and I just think you're good at it. I think you have a clear talent there, and I think it's just unique, and so it's cool to have something unique to offer. So I think that's great, and yeah, I like the way you think. I think the podcast is gas. I hope you keep doing it too, and I appreciate you having me on, dude. I really did enjoy the conversation.
Where can people find you?
DannySuede.com is the main place. There's links to everything on there. My blog, my Spotify, Danny Suede, Instagram at Danny_Suede. And yeah, hit me up.
There you go, guys. Danny Suede. Thank you for listening.
Hey, yo.